let's get into this. Have you ever had that feeling, that really unsettling sense that someone you expect to be right there, well, they just feel miles away? Like you're reaching out, talking, maybe even, pleading, and all you get back is silence.
Not the feeling.
Yeah, that experience of feeling unheard or disconnected, maybe even feeling like you've been abandoned. That's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
Right.
Our source material for this deep dive is a devotional reflection. It's called When God is Silent, a prayerful reflection, and it focuses specifically on Psalm 74, mainly verses 1 through 11.
Really intense passage.
Definitely. So our mission here is to explore this reflection and the psalm itself, obviously, to try and understand what it means, what it feels like when God seems silent. We want to pull out the key insights from the text.
And maybe some surprising ones, too.
Exactly. We're thinking of this as a conversation about how to navigate those times when prayers seem to hit the ceiling or that connection just feels lost. I think that's something a lot of us can probably relate to.
Yeah, I think so. And the source, it kicks off by describing Psalm 74 as a cry from a broken heart. And honestly, when you look at the psalm, you see why immediately.
It paints a bleak picture.
Totally bleak. It's set against this backdrop of just utter devastation for God's people. The psalmist is describing a scene where the sanctuary, their temple, the absolute heart of their worship, it's destroyed.
Gone.
And the enemies aren't just there, they're mocking them. They're roaring in the places where people used to gather to worship God. They're setting up their own banners, their own signs.
Taking over completely.
Right, and tearing down the beautiful carvings with axes and hammers, burning the sanctuary, burning all the meeting places across the land. It's total destruction.
It really is a picture of absolute ruin. And what makes it even worse, as the psalm points out, is that there are no signs left, no miracles, nothing to indicate God's presence.
Not a prophet speaking either.
Right. No word from God coming through. And the really chilling part is when the psalmist says, nobody knows how long this is going to last. It's not just bricks and mortar destroyed. It's like a spiritual vacuum, a silence.
And it's out of that devastation that you hear the psalmist's core feeling pour out. God seems completely silent, distant, maybe even like gone.
And they don't hold back, do they?
Not at all. They ask these raw, incredibly honest questions many of us might only dare to think, frankly. Things like, why do you cast us off forever? Why is your anger smoking against us, your own sheep?
And how long, God? How long is the enemy going to scoff?
Yeah, that really piercing one. Why do you hold back your hand? Why don't you just reach out and destroy them? You feel the confusion, the pain, this deep sense of being forgotten by the very God they belong to.
Exactly. And that context makes Psalm 74, verse 2, which the reflection highlights as the key verse. It's so powerful because right in the middle of all this wreckage and questioning, the psalmist makes this direct appeal. It almost sounds like begging.
It does. Remember your congregation, which you have purchased of old, which you have redeemed to be the tribe of your heritage. Remember Mount Zion, where you have dwelt.
Remember your congregation, purchased of old. It's like they're saying, remember our history. You chose us, you bought us out of slavery, you redeemed us to be your special people.
And remember Mount Zion, where you have dwelt. Remember the specific place you chose to live among us.
It's this desperate plea, really, for God to remember the relationship, the promises, the history, precisely when everything in the present feels like he's completely forgotten them.
And that's the connection the devotional reflection makes so well. It bridges that ancient cry, that ancient confusion.
That feeling the reflection describes as prayers just bouncing off the ceiling.
Right, that feeling. It connects that directly to how we might feel sometimes.
Yeah.
When we feel unheard, disconnected. It really captures that painful question the psalm embodies, which, let's be honest, many of us might feel in really hard times. God, we're yours. Everything's falling apart. Why aren't you doing anything?
Yeah, that question hangs heavy.
But here's what's really fascinating, and the reflection flags this as a pivotal insight. It's not just about the questions the psalmist asks. It's about the action they take.
Okay.
Despite this horrific scene, this total devastation, despite feeling completely rejected and hearing only this profound silence from God, the psalmist still prays. They still call out to God.
It's not just complaining into the void. It's lament directed at God. They haven't given up, haven't walked away.
Exactly. Even in that absolute pit of despair, feeling totally abandoned, the very act of voicing these raw, painful questions to God, it shows a belief, maybe a tiny flicker of belief, but still belief that He is somehow listening.
Even when he seems utterly silent.
Even then. And that's the crucial turn the reflection makes. It suggests that maybe God's silence in our lives isn't automatically rejection, even though, yeah, it can really feel like it.
Okay, so if it's not rejection, what is it?
Well, the source proposes thinking about it differently. Maybe the silence could be understood as an invitation.
An invitation. That really changes things, doesn't it? An invitation to what? What does the reflection suggest?
It suggests a few possibilities.
Yeah.
Maybe God is waiting, inviting hearts to return to him. Maybe it's an invitation to repentance where that's needed. Or perhaps it's an invitation to develop a deeper kind of trust, one that doesn't rely on constant signs or feelings.
So the silence isn't necessarily emptiness.
Right. It's framed potentially as a space where something important is meant to happen within us, or maybe in our relationship with God, even if we can't see or hear him working in that moment.
That really shifts the focus, doesn't it? From just waiting for God to act to maybe considering what our response should be in the silence.
Exactly. And the reflection kind of brings this home by offering some really key reassurances drawn right from the Psalm's context.
Like what?
Well, first, that God's silence doesn't automatically mean he's absent. Second, it reiterates that he remembers his people, echoing that desperate plea in verse 2, remember.
He remembers.
Yes. And third, crucially, it reminds you, the listener, that he is not done with you, even when you don't feel him there, even when you don't see any signs of his work.
Those are huge reassurances when you're in that silent place.
Definitely. And those are really the core takeaways the reflection wants us to grasp. First, it's okay. It's actually okay to bring those raw, honest, even angry questions to God. The psalmist did.
Permission to be real.
Permission to be real. Second, God's silence doesn't equal his absence. And third, that vital reminder, he remembers you, even when everything around you feels forgotten.
So let's bring this back around. Thinking about this deep dive into Psalm 74 and the reflection, what does this mean for you? The source itself kind of pushes us to ask some personal questions. Like, have you felt this kind of profound silence in your own life? Times when prayers just felt like they were hitting a brick wall, when things looked bleak and God just seemed distant, inactive?
If so.
Yeah. If so, what might it look like for you right now to keep praying, honestly? To bring those raw questions, even if you don't get an immediate answer, or any answer you can perceive.
And thinking about that idea of silence as an invitation.
Right. Is there maybe an area where the source suggests God might be inviting you in the quiet to return to him? Or maybe to deepen your trust? Or perhaps to lean into repentance about something?
It definitely leaves you with something to chew on. This final thought, maybe. Considering the psalmist's experience, that utter devastation that felt silence, and then their response, still crying out, still trusting God to remember, what does it truly mean for you?
To keep trusting, keep calling out to a God who sometimes can seem profoundly, even painfully silent.